from Yarmouth Town Hall, 1446 Route 28, South Yarmouth, Massachusetts, 02664. The public is welcome to attend either in person or via the alternative public access provided below or on the website.
Thank you, Sandy. We just have a roll call of attendance, please. Jane, you want to start, please?
Jane Kane, Library Director.
Susan Britta, present.
John Greco.
Sandy Fife?
Judy Connors Tarver.
Tom Pendleton.
Mindy Harrington.
Okay. So we may have some late arrivals, but
Joe Lebrecq is not able to come.
yes, we did get that message.
Okay, good.
So let's just start with our public comment component here. We have nothing from Linda, Mark.
Anybody online?
Okay, anybody online that has their hand up?
I do. Joyce.
Joyce?
Hi. I just wanted to call in and say congratulations on the important milestone. You've done a great job.
Thank you, Joyce.
Oh, thank you for all you do.
All right, is there anyone else there? No. Okay. All right, so we do have some minutes to get caught up with.
We have the
Just because
18th.
did
We have
vote
the,
on
just the 18th, Madam Chair,
it.
June 18th.
Okay, so these are the minutes of June 18. Could I have a motion to accept those?
Motion to accept the meeting minutes of June 18th.
I don't have any minutes.
A second?
Minutes.
No second?
I can second that.
Okay, all right, so, discussion.
I don't have a copy of them.
Oh, were they not emailed out?
I don't have a printer at home, so.
I do have a copy if you want to hold on that, Madam Chair. So she has a chance to look at them. Bring it back in a few minutes. I am working on the 17th. It's a work in progress. I am making progress.
It was a big meeting.
This is the 18th. 17th is almost done.
So this was our follow-up meeting when we discussed the input from
Yeah.
the public
Public.
information session.
Those down to
So,
the bottom.
no conversation?
Still reading.
Are you okay with them?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. Okay, so our architects are on, right?
Yeah, we're just gonna make them as a panelist, I think.
Okay.
Can you make Matt Olmos? Yeah, thank you.
Which one?
Actually, all of them.
Oh, it's Matt is the second one in Marika.
There's Matt.
Anna's to the left,
Just Matt for
and Lois is to the left, and Tim's in the middle.
It's Marika.
She's,
That's probably her phone or her account.
Yeah, I'm on the phone. Sorry about that.
Oh, hi, Marika.
Hi.
No apologies. We're here
Hi,
in
everybody.
spirit.
Can you guys hear me and see me okay?
Hello, yes, now we can.
Great.
Okay. Well, welcome. So, Matt, are you taking on this introduction tonight?
Yeah, I mean, we talked with Bill, I guess it was last week, and Jen and Tim briefly, and I mean, I'm happy to walk through the schedule and our kind of plan of attack for this process. And it would be good, in addition to that, to maybe talk a little bit about, communication, sort of chain of command, setting up time for regularly scheduled meetings. I think we mentioned to you in our interview that we typically plan for bi-weekly meetings, so it'd be good to maybe kind of take the committee's pulse on what day of the week seems to work well, what time of day works well, and see if we can't get a day that we kind of set up as our regular meeting. Do I have sharing privileges? Oh, I do. Good. So I'm going to put up the schedule, and I think maybe that's a good way to start talking about the process. We've kind of divided this into 3 tasks over the next.
Excuse me, Matt.
Just a
Yeah.
point of order, can we get a full introduction of the name of the firm, and so that everybody watching and listening in knows who's talking and what they're doing?
Thank you, Mark. Matt, can you completely introduce your firm and anybody else who's there with you?
Yes, I'm sorry. I should have done that to start. My name's Matt Odens. I'm a principal at Odens LO Architecture. I have Marika Kobel with me tonight, who is the project manager for the study. She's a senior designer in our office. We're just a little bit about us. We're a 12-person office in Boston. My partner and I founded the practice in 2007. We have done a lot of library work in that time. Building off our experience prior to starting our practice, we've expanded on a kind of niche in cultural projects. Most of our projects have a public audience, so public libraries fit well into that. We love working on public libraries. To date, I think we've been working on 24 public libraries in New England. 23 of those, I believe, 21 of those are in Massachusetts. 12 of those are with the Massachusetts Board of Library Commissioners, and we have 10 that are complete as of today. We have a couple more in construction. We have 3 in construction, actually. So we're really excited to work with the town of Yarmouth. This seems like it's going to be a great project. We are very familiar with this grant round process. We've been involved in, as I said, 10 projects with the MBLC. They all were conducted under the requirements of the MPLCP grant. The structure of that grant has changed a little bit in terms of pursuit of the grant, but the terms of the grant have stayed pretty consistent throughout, and we've got really great lines of communication with the MBLC. As I said, that long-standing relationship with Andrea Bono Bunker and Heather Backman, and even the people that preceded them, leaves us, I think, pretty well versed in what their expectations are of us. We're very familiar with the MPLCP grant deliverables, which we are obligated to provide by the end of December. And we feel like there's ample time, especially given the good work that you guys as a committee have done in terms of identifying sites, narrowing them down, and ultimately selecting a site. We're excited about the Simpkins Field site. In particular, I think because of the potential for a pairing with a town common project. And, we like to see libraries positioned, especially in smaller towns, in kind of important geographical locations. And I think adjacent to a town common across from town hall starts to create a real sort of synergy and center of gravity for the town, which I think is great. I think there's a lot of potential for a public building like that, having that kind of adjacent town-owned open space. We, as an office, are very interested and kind of preoccupied with buildings' abilities to relate to their immediate environments, creating meaningful connections between indoors and outdoors. And so we think that this site will allow for that, which we're excited about.
Thank you. So thank you for that introduction, and then I think now we are ready to go into the schedule review.
Okay, great. So I will put that back up. Can everybody see this?
Yes.
We have it too.
We have
Great.
copies too.
So this is maybe edited slightly from the copy that you have, just based on start date. We are now officially in July. And so, we're getting closer week by week to the December deadline, but we still feel there's ample time. The good news is that we are not evaluating multiple sites. You guys have already done that process, and so we're starting with a selected preferred site, and we can hit the ground running trying to develop options for that site. As I said before, we see this we've divided it up into 3 tasks. Really, there are kind of 2 sub phases to this initial phase of work, getting us to the December deadline for the MPLCP deliverables. And those kind of 2 main sections of this work are sort of site analysis and building program verification and test fitting that program on the site and developing conceptual planning options. We typically will look at a range of options. It might be 3 different versions of the building. It might be that we study a 1-story building, we study a 2-story version, kind of weigh the pros and cons of that, and different arrangements of that program on that site. And with, through biweekly meetings with the committee, we will start to kind of narrow the focus towards a preferred concept, ideally by early August, which gives us about 6 weeks between now and then to start to develop concepts, and a couple of working meetings with you to review initial thoughts, refine those, come back to you, incorporating feedback, and then ultimately kind of presenting a number of options to you for evaluation and selecting one of those ideally to move forward with for a pricing package. Alternatively, if we feel like cost, and there's a cost estimate that we're planning for in the beginning of September, which we would sort of classify as a rough order of magnitude estimate. And that's really to make sure that at the end of this conceptual design, the cost of the project and the scope of the project are generally aligned with your expectations. We know that the program calls for a 26,000 square foot building. We will have some idea from our estimator what the cost of that will be. Jen and Tim and their team will put that into an overall project budget, because this estimate is only dealing with construction costs, not project costs. Project costs are the combination of construction costs, which we call hard costs, and soft costs, which are all of the other things that go into a building project. Design fees, permitting, furniture, equipment, all kinds of things that contribute to the overall project cost, but are not part of construction. And so at this point, we want to make sure that scope and budget are aligned. At which point, and that cost may influence a decision about a preferred option too. So depending on, how quickly the committee coalesces around a design, we may decide that we can narrow it down just based on kind of design preference. But if it's difficult to make a decision between different options, we can also use cost as another variable to make that decision. So that 3 weeks of developing a preferred option for a conceptual pricing package by the end of August, that could be kind of coinciding with the bar above it, which is the conceptual planning option. So we'll just have to see how that planning development goes. Then starting in mid-September, we'll start the kind of with a single preferred option at that point, developing further the design so that we are by early November developing a more detailed pricing package that we can give our estimator, continue to develop the design, develop exterior images of what it might look like as seen from across the town common, some interior views, more detailed look at accommodating collections and seating requirements for the program, develop that at a more detailed level, price that again in November, And then the month of December, we've sort of allocated to preparing the actual documentation for the NPLCP submission. A lot of that will be content that has been generated over the course of October and November, but packaging that in a way, making sure that we're checking every box for the required deliverables for the NBLC's review, and then submitting that at the end of December. As I said, we anticipate roughly bi-weekly meetings. Once we're in the second stage of this, what we've labeled as task 3 up the top, the NPLCP level of design, those meetings may push out a little bit because we're spending more time coordinating with our consultant team. And it's, I think the more frequent interaction with the committee typically is less critical during that stage, but we'll still want to have regular meetings with you. So this is what is in our scope of work. This is what we've budgeted. In terms of meetings, there are also some key meetings that we'll want to talk about when to schedule and the format that they want to take. The first is the NBLC. We obviously want to keep them involved in the progress of this to make sure that we're getting input from them along the way. That'll be important feedback to make sure that we're not doing anything that they don't agree with, and we are taking their comments into consideration. We don't want them to be seeing it for the first time in December. At a minimum, we have budgeted one meeting in each of the 2 phases of work here, and if we need more meetings than that, that's always a possibility. As I said, we've got open lines of communication with Andrea and Heather. We're always able to hop on the phone with them for quick questions if that's necessary. So well, as we get into this, we can speak more with them. And I don't know, Jane, do you know if it's Andrea or Heather that's assigned to this project? Have they told you?
It's Andrea.
It is, okay. The other piece of this that we'll want to talk more specifically about you is community engagement, which is an important piece of this. Just like we don't want to go to the NBLC in December with them seeing this for the first time, we also want to make sure that the community has a voice in this process and that we're bringing them along the process as we go. And so we've identified a couple of tentative timeframes for community outreach that would be, we're imagining that would be a kind of open community forum where we present ideas that we've been talking about as a group, we solicit community feedback, and then we try to the best of our ability to incorporate the feedback that we've heard that we're able to into the design so that the community has a voice, they see what's happening, they're invested in the process, and they're not seeing it for the first time, at the end of this. We want to make sure that there are at least a couple of opportunities to open it up to a wider audience. Beyond those 2 meetings, kind of like the NBLC, if you as a committee, this community better than we do, certainly. And so if you have specific thoughts about the best way to conduct community outreach, we can also certainly post things on either the library website or the town website to make sure that information is accessible to the general public as we move through this process. There are other ways, kind of online questionnaires and different formats that we can look at for engaging the community. But I think at a minimum, we're proposing these 2 sort of public meeting type open forums. So that's generally the scope and the schedule. I don't know if anyone has any questions.
I do.
About this.
Yeah, okay. So committee. Mindy.
Well, I have a question from the library staff's point of view. I see meetings for the community, every other meeting. When will you be speaking to us about what we think our needs are for the building?
I thought those were.
That's this bar at the bottom, the orange bar. So each of these orange circles is a building committee meeting.
Okay. But it
So-
doesn't
so
include
every
library
2 weeks.
staff.
With library staff.
Library
Yeah.
staff, yes, because I
I'm
know
sorry.
we have some very specific ideas for the children's room and spaces. So I was wondering when staff will be
Fair
included.
warning.
Yeah, fair warning.
Yeah, no, Mindy, that's a great point, and they are only left off because there are a lot of stakeholders that I'm sure we're going to engage with, library staff, certainly not the least of them, that aren't on the schedule just because it would get way too crowded to put everybody on this list. We are available in between these kind of regularly scheduled meetings. We are always available to meet with different stakeholder groups. The staff, absolutely, and there are going to be key moments in this process where we need staff involvement in terms of, getting specific feedback about adjacencies, and there are going to be some specific topics that we want to have a discussion with, and that would be kind of outside typically the regularly scheduled project meeting. That said, we always welcome staff at the building committee meetings. Obviously, you and Jane are representing staff interests at these meetings, and the same would be true when we meet with staff. We would expect Jen's team to be there, and obviously we'd always welcome anybody from the building committee that wanted to participate in those. But you're right; it warrants more than just the biweekly meetings.
Okay, Mindy, do you feel responded there?
I feel responded, and I feel that I can send him a list of what we're looking for. No.
Yeah, no,
I feel I can reach out to you is what
we-
I'm saying.
We want to be accessible to you, so we are always an email and a phone call away. I would just suggest that if there is email correspondence, to copy Jen and Tim, and we can talk about sort of communication and how those kind of chain of command things should work. Who should be copied on emails. But we want to make sure that things don't get lost in kind of one-on-one conversations. We also have to be mindful of public meeting law, that we don't want to get into a situation where we're debating things by email. We have to be respectful that there's a public process, and we don't want to shortchange that in any way.
Okay, along with that, Matt, generally in town, I think the way we do things is because we don't want email flying all over the place and losing track of what's happening. So, for example, Mindy, if you were to want to reach out with your list, okay, that needs to come to me too, as the chair. And then, for now, it's Bill, but these.
Yes.
Okay, so that whoever our new town designee is, but just so there's a central repository. Meanwhile, having to respect open meeting laws, we can't be going back and forth.
Yes.
Okay.
No.
Thank you. Susan?
If it's going to be the open meeting law, then everyone on the board should get it, not just you. I think that's the way, is that correct, Bill? If we do open meeting, because we are a constituted committee, I think everyone on the committee should get the emails. I believe that's how we do it on planning.
Well, you can't debate or dialogue regarding the emails.
Yeah.
You can receive something, but then that document needs to be a matter of record at the next meeting.
Yeah, it's the next time.
So it's best to sort of, if the communication is from the library staff, it's not a committee
Right.
communication. So if they
Correct.
send it to you, Judy, it's a committee communication. So I think you should let the staff communicate
Directly with.
and then have the architect say, here's what we got from staff.
Okay.
I mean, otherwise, we're gonna send the email from staff, it goes to the whole committee, and invariably somebody comments on it. Oh, I'm sorry. Invariably, somebody comments on it. So you want to set up a system that communicates with the architect so they can have a dialogue back and forth. If the library staff communicates with the architect and the architect returns a communication, you're dialoguing. So it can't go to the committee.
So one way that we've handled this on other projects is that there's a single point of contact, and Judy, whether that's you or it's somebody else on the committee, that person collects whatever feedback, whether it's from staff or other committee members, and then sends that on and copies, whoever is appropriate for that particular email. But that way, the things are always going through the same channel. And maybe, it sounds like maybe that's the way to go here as well.
Yeah, that's what I was envisioning. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. All right, let's see. So the phase we're in here right now is our committee response to Matt's overview of the schedule. Tom?
Matt, Tom Pendleton, congratulations on the job. Just
Thank you.
one quick thing, and it's a very minor question. On the community forum number 2, I'm wondering, is there enough time after that forum to incorporate what you get back from the town before you submit in December, or are you comfortable with that time frame?
I am, but these are tentative dates too. As we get into this, I think we'll have a better sense of what the right timing is. These are kind of generally where we think they should be. But if it is better that it happened a week or 2 weeks earlier, we want to make sure that we're setting them up at a point where there's enough to present. But at the same time, have enough time to react. And I feel like if there is one meeting where we've taken the kind of initial pulse of the community, we have a general sense of what community sentiment is, which informs then the work that's happening between that meeting and the next public meeting. So that when we go to that second public meeting, it's not, generally speaking, it's not a surprise. We kind of know what to expect, but things are more developed. And so the feedback that we get at that second meeting tends to be a little bit more refined. It's less kind of big picture or a change in scope or something like that. So if that is the case, and we would expect that to be, then I think there's ample time. But as I said, I think once we're in this is a kind of organic process, and this schedule, all of this is a little bit tentative, and some things may expand, some things may contract a little bit, and we can adjust it as we go. This will be a kind of living document as we move through these phases. It's a guide, it's not written in stone.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you.
No, too, right, it's following the December submission, right? That's really just the beginning of the whole design process. By no means is what we submit in December 100% final design, right? So it changes, minor changes can still be incorporated. Anything that were to come out of that community forum that would potentially cause issues with, the MBLC, it's going to cause issues whether it's before December or after December. It just again, I just want to make clear that again, that December submission by no means, has us locked into whatever we submit, 100%.
Okay, thank you. Jane, do you have any comment about the overall schedule?
I do. For the community forums, I see one, I guess, toward the end of July and one in the middle of October. Will you folks be in person, or will we set it up? Oh, good answer.
Yeah, no, I think in person. I mean, that's generally our preference, honestly, for meetings. I will say that there are times when Zoom makes more sense, and I would expect that maybe half of our meetings with you are in person as a kind of, general assumption, but we'll do as many in person as we can. We are doing other work on the Cape. We have 3 other projects down on the Cape, so we're going to be down there anyway. I happen to be down there today. I just couldn't stay for this meeting, but there will be times when it's easier for us just to stay down there for a second meeting. So we'd like to do them in person to the extent that we can.
Terrific.
Okay, thank you. Susan?
No comment.
John?
My only comment is going back on community. Since we've had outreach and we had our June 17th, there's a lot of information that came from that meeting that I'm not sure the architects are aware of that really should be programmed in, because we already have information of what the public's thinking. And I'm not sure, again, what they know, what they don't know, and how they've programmed that into the scope or schedule.
Okay. So mostly what we came out of those two meetings were the site decision, which was what was pretty critical for the architects. But I think the other issues, I don't want to miss anything, but were broader concerns of will West continue, will it be, and were more administrative management kinds
that's not
of
a-
things.
Whether there's a satellite or not a satellite, I'm assuming affects programming, which then has to be considered because right from the get-go, your assumption on what you're programming and why you're programming what you're programming, we don't want them to have a change in scope in the first month because they didn't realize what was expressed. I'll go to the meeting, that first one at the end of July, and have the public state the same thing that they stated and say, why haven't you listened? So,
Okay.
I mean, I think we
Susan?
have to.
Oh, I'm sorry, John, I didn't mean to
The
cut you
meeting,
off.
the public meeting, I was under the impression that the architects participated by Zoom. So they did see the public meeting, right? On the 7th, that
Yes.
Tuesday? Weren't they, I thought we specifically
Yeah,
asked if they
I
were-
was at one of the site selection meetings, so I did hear the public comment about, and this was when you had narrowed it down to Simpkins Fields, the
four.
the site over by the golf course,
Right,
and
the
I
four
think
of
there
them.
was the one that I can't pronounce and won't try.
Matakees.
Yes, that one. So I did hear public comment related to the discussion about those sites and the comments about West Yarmouth that were related to that discussion. If there's other public comment, if there have been surveys done, if there are recordings of other meetings that you feel would be good for us to be aware of, if that stuff is available, I know Bill had put a number of things on the town's website, and Accenture has a file share online database for us that has a ton of information, most of which we've reviewed at this point. I think there was less in there from the community, although we did review quite a few letters of community, support for various sites that were being considered. So if there are specific meetings or, data points that we should be aware of, we're happy to review them if they're available.
Judy,
Okay,
actually,
Susan.
I just want to follow, I think that's a good point because at the Board of Selectmen meeting Tuesday night, one member of the public got up and made the comment, because there now seems to be a move toward retaining in some fashion the West Yarmouth Library, that the overall size of the 25,000 can be reduced. Now, I understand it can be, but only by a certain percentage, correct?
I'm not sure about those requirements.
I think the
But-
state said
But
they can-
his, his statement
10% or
was,
something?
his statement was there are X square feet at West.
Right.
And so can we subtract that from the 20? Yeah.
Right.
And then have that to be the resulting project. But as far as reducing the size of our request, that's your question right now, right? So the request has gone to the Mass Board.
Right, at 26,000. Right, yeah.
Based on a program.
Program, right, right.
Space needs.
Right, and I think
My
that,
understanding is that without substantial information that you didn't have prior to that submission, that you really don't want to get into changing that
I'm not,
proposal. Is that right?
asking to change anything. I think there should be clarification, because clearly one member of the public thought there was a trade-off there, and
Right.
that's not the case.
Right.
So I think the public does need to be informed that regardless of what happens to West Yarmouth, the requirement as stated is the requirement as stated. And subtracting the value, with the square footage is not something that's contemplated in this project. Because some people have already said, well, that means we can save money, we can have a smaller building, blah, 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 blah. That's not the case.
Right.
That's not the case. So I think that needs to be clarified.
Okay, so that should be part of whatever community outreach we're doing, yeah.
Well, my question would be, should the architect's scope be better in detailing and making sure the assumptions kind of going back to what Susan said, is clear in here, because right now, if you read the scope, I know there's a programming process, but we don't know where we're starting from. And that's nothing really identified at all.
What does that mean? We don't know where we're starting from?
Yeah.
Whether we have to consider a different West Yarmouth site, not consider a West Yarmouth site, having a starting point of 26,000, not having a starting point is not identified in the scope, right? We typically, I'm going to go back to my 30-plus years of project management, that's all black and white in the scope, so that when it may change, both sides are covered, right? Our expectations should be covered of what they're thinking and what we're understanding. When it's not in there, we don't know anything, because I can only read what's written.
I only know that the message that has come from the study committee, the planning committee, and now the building committee, and the various consultants we've had up to this point, has stated that because the grant funds one facility, that's what we're focusing on. And that's all that we can focus on with this grant project.
And the starting point of the size, 26,000, we'll just use that number, isn't anywhere in the scope that says they're starting their programming based upon
But
26,000.
the documents are referred to in that scope, in that scope, and in the RFP and the RFQ, so that,
Referenced in there.
yeah.
Yeah, our understanding is that we, as a starting point, we are taking the building program that's developed for the grant and working on building concepts based on that program, irrespective of West Yarmouth. And I mean, I think it's an oversimplification to say that West Yarmouth is, X square feet, and so you can subtract that from a new building, because there has to be duplication of services. It's not a one-to-one swap. But West Yarmouth is not our, it doesn't fall into our purview as part of this study. We were hired to plan a library based on the library building program. That's the task as we understand it. And so that's what this scope of work is about.
Does that answer your question, John?
I'm going to go back and way too detailed, but contractually, I have no idea what their scope of services is. If it's referenced, which it sometimes easily could be referenced, that would answer my question, but I have no idea if it's referenced and where it's referenced, because the scope I reviewed doesn't reference it. If it referenced it, then I wouldn't have a question anymore.
Right, okay. So what we need to do is make sure we have a common understanding of that. Okay, and where is that documented?
And where is, exactly, that's the key point, is where is that documented?
Okay.
Yeah, it's important to mention too that there is a contract between our office and the town, and that contract, in addition to the scope of work document that you're referring to, defines the services. And so we can certainly amend our scope of work to make specific reference to the library building program, but my guess is that it will be included as part of the exhibits in the contract with the town. In other words, we can make sure in between the several documents that will comprise the overall owner-architect contract for this study, that it's clearly spelled out, to your point.
Okay.
Okay, all righty.
I'm all set, thank you, ma'am.
Okay. My concern also, we've had a lot of feedback on these community forum meetings. And my concern is that young people have been brought up a number of times, and how we're going to have that involvement. And I'm thinking July isn't high time to get teenagers to the library.
Oh, you'd be surprised, Judy.
Parents can't come too because there's no childcare and it's right at bedtime and dinner time, and I feel they've been a very underrepresented group in this whole process.
So if you can think about all the wonderful ways you've had to involve younger people, parents of younger kids, in these community outreach sessions, I think that we're going to need them. And I think the one in October, we should probably partner with the school districts and try and encourage even more attendance that way, through that direct line. But I am very concerned about that, how they are represented.
That wouldn't be the architect, though. I mean, that would be you reaching, excuse me, that would be you reaching out to those sectors.
Okay, my understanding when we did our other conversations, though, was that the community forums, maybe it was Tim who was going to help us with that, to organize those.
Well, they'll get the meeting together and the presentation materials, but they don't know who to contact to hit those sectors.
Oh, I understood.
Yeah.
Understood.
Yeah, so you need to make a list of everybody that you want to regularly communicate with.
I just don't want any talent to be missed, because we have our talent
And
here.
that would be
I
the
want all the
committee, not,
talent.
it would be the committee, not the architect.
Judy, with our 91 programs this summer, if we did something for families on like one of our family fun days, we could get an extra library staff to entertain the kids, the younger kids while parents engaged, or like one of our teen crafts, we could do it and studies show that teens, while their hands are busy, are more likely to engage, so.
Yeah, I mean, we see our role as partners with you in the community outreach and with Accenture too. But we look to you to help steer the process. Like, you know, you, for example, bringing up kids and parents of kids, that's a group that you feel has been underrepresented, and we need to think about how to engage them. We don't know that coming into this as outsiders, so we need to know from you what, you know, who is it that we want to target, and then we can, as a group, decide the best way to do that. And, you know, having a separate event geared towards kids and teens and parents of kids and teens, I think makes a lot of sense in that context. So I think we just need to talk through a process with you to make sure that we're hitting all groups that we think we need to, and sort of figuring out together how to do that. And then we'll support, obviously, that effort and kind of figure out the right way to present material and solicit input.
Okay, thank you. So anything else on this schedule?
Now, before I turn this off, I put this schedule up to sort of reiterate the point that Tim made earlier, which is, you know, everything on the left side of this, up until that gray vertical bar here, which is the hiatus from January to May for the MPLCP review. That is, you know, a relatively small portion of the overall project schedule. Beyond that, once we've passed Springtown meeting and we're moving into subsequent design phases, we've got another, you know, almost a year of continued development and design and other opportunities for public engagement. So the meetings that we have during this initial phase one it's not the last time the public will be engaged. So I just wanted to sort of reiterate Tim's point.
Just one point on the schedule. You don't have to bring it back up, Matt. We need a selectmen's meeting somewhere in there because they need to vote to authorize this to go to the state.
Yeah.
So I you know, it's probably best that they get regular updates, but which they will, and the website is there. But you want enough time that if there are things that are brought up, they have the time to change. So are we looking at around the time you have that last public forum?
Well, it seems like we should report back after the 2 community meetings and also before fall town meeting. But that doesn't necessarily mean that's 3 times, because the one after the community meeting can also be the prep one for the fall town meeting.
We don't have anything going on fall town meeting, do we?
No.
We won't have anything?
No.
No.
This needs more time than that.
Okay.
And the state, my understanding is the Board of Selectmen would allow this to move forward in the grant.
Okay, so this item here that says approve schematic design
That's not gonna happen?
at fall town meeting?
Well,
It's on the back
you can
side.
do it if you want to. I didn't think we had enough time to be able to fit that in.
Oh, yeah.
Is that, but that's not pushed to the spring.
Are you talking about phase one? We're on the phase one sheet, right? Not the, that's the full sheet.
Yeah.
Turn it over.
It says
That's,
Fall town meeting schematic design approval.
That would,
But that's in December. Well, it says fall, it shows it in December.
approve schematic design, we don't need to go before town meeting for schematic design approval. I think
you need to, the best thing to
Community
do
forum.
is look at the phase one sheet, not the full one. You look, if you see the divider there with a gray divider, that you're looking at the full sheet. Look at the phase one sheet. I only say that because you're wandering past December.
Yes, it is.
So, definitively, I mean, Jane has indicated that you don't need a town meeting vote to submit the schematic.
Right.
But you shouldn't submit a schematic to a grant agency unless the board has seen it.
select.
You say the
And the
board, you mean
community will
Board of
see it at the different
Selectmen,
meetings.
select board, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, and I mean, again, we defer to you on the best time to engage these groups. I think the confusion may be that we had indicated a presentation to the select board at the end of our kind of conceptual design before we move into what's called here schematic design, but it's really the MPLCP level of design. We do not highlight a specific presentation to the select board, to Bill's point, in that latter stage. And we agree that it makes sense to do that. And so the question is, what's the right timing of that? Is it after that second community forum? And it should be done with enough time to make adjustments if necessary. So we can talk as a group about when it makes sense to do that. I will defer to you in terms of, fall town meeting and whether something needs to be presented at fall town meeting. I don't know when that is for Yarmouth.
Usually.
Well, it sounds like that there is nothing to go to town meeting. That's what I'm
No,
understanding.
except for sharing information, I'd like to see a big poster, or I'd like to see,
There's no legal requirement.
An FAQ.
You can't do this grant or anything.
No.
There's no, okay, then,
We checked it out with MBLC.
Yeah, you would check that out. I mean, let's just make sure that
I'll
we're in that
save the
position.
email that says that.
Great. And then I think, though, that the board meetings, you really need to nail it down to the date of their meeting. There won't be any sort of, we can meet then for this. So somewhere around that second forum, after it might be a good time, and it gives you them the ability to hear from the public and hear what the next steps are, what the commitments are.
Okay. And then maybe have an info table at the fall town meeting. Yep. Okay. All right, so we're ready to move on here, folks. So, hope you brought your pencils. So we're going to align our meetings with, our upcoming meetings with the scope. So just some general things as far as meeting times. It seems like we can't get earlier than 5 because of other people's work commitments. And we've landed on, we've had meetings on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and is that still our, kind of operating framework for setting up meetings?
Tuesdays, I know we're bad for Joe, and also, why am I blanking on her name? She's not here
Vicky.
tonight. Vicky works on Tuesday nights, so
Oh,
yes,
That's why she's not.
yes, and so I don't think Tuesday nights work, because I think Joe and I were talking about switching off days, so.
okay. And was there an issue with Wednesdays?
I have an issue on some.
Susan?
if it's staggered, I am planning on every other Wednesday, but I can fill in on the odd Wednesdays.
Okay.
So if
It-
we
Like the
can set
first and
schedule
third,
up there.
second and fourth?
I forget, I have to go back and look, because sometimes we don't have a meeting, we push it off.
Sure.
But I think Kathy's got the schedule, she's got a pretty good schedule through the summer, so I can certainly get that to you.
Okay,
I
thank
always
you.
have a conflict on the first Wednesday.
Okay, so,
Wednesday, FinCom is going to own Room A after somewhere around December and January.
okay,
Starting then, probably almost every week. CIP, it is late August. They begin to own Room A on Mondays,
I think Thursday.
all the way until March almost.
okay, so Capitals on Monday and FinCom is.
And then Muck is usually varies, but it's on Thursdays. Matakey's Utilization Committee.
And
So,
where's- And is that also in A? That's also in room A?
yeah. So it may be an issue of finding a venue as much as finding your own schedule.
More variables than we need.
Yeah.
All right, so it seems like Thursday, except for Mock.
We'll see what their schedule is. Right now, they have a meeting on the 9th and the 15th. I'm not sure if those are Thursdays. I don't think the 9th is.
The library closes at 5 on Thursdays, so that's the day we are guaranteed the space.
Except when the newcomers book group meets there at 7 o'clock. It's the last Thursday of the month. But we can negotiate.
Okay, so Thursday, the library would be available, except not the last Thursday.
We can
We
work
can
on that,
negotiate.
yeah.
They're good. They can meet upstairs or they can meet a different day. They're good.
Okay. Wow. Do we want to just try and have our meetings in one place instead of flitting all over town?
Yes.
Okay, so if the libraries are more available or reliably available location,
We're talking Thursday nights?
Thursday night.
Thursday nights, does that work for folks?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
And
I
just
like-
for your.
And sorry, what time on Thursdays?
6.
6, okay.
If we had to do a Tuesday one, Tuesday evenings, we also close at 5, so it would ensure that also if something had to happen on a Tuesday.
Okay. All right.
And is this once a month? Or sporadic?
Now, Jen, we're going to try and fit that in with the scope here. So some of them looked like they were going to be a couple of times a week. So that's what we need to sort out. All right, so shall we begin with the Phase 1 schedule then, and what we need to do over the next couple of weeks? So Matt, you'll be coming down and do the site analysis and the site survey soon?
Yes, we will coordinate that with our civil engineer who's doing the survey. What I had asked Bill in the meantime is if there's any available scalable information about the site. It doesn't have to be super detailed, but if there's something that has the boundary line and that we can that's scalable, it's measurable. We can use that to start doing layouts. We'll do an initial site visit with our landscape architect and our civil engineer. But the site survey, is probably a multi-week process. So we'll be doing work in parallel with that, and then kind of catching up to the survey once it's ready. And the survey will have more detailed information on grading, topography, utilities. But I think initially, if we've got something, just a base plan that we can work from, that's enough for us to get going with some of the initial planning work.
Okay, well, that seems to be achievable.
Yeah.
So we get that from,
Mass GIS is where we get most of our information.
all right.
I can see what I can do about the GIS system. We're still vacant person in that system. So they have 2 parcels that we're looking at. I sent a request to legal for legal information and a title search on the site, so
Oh, okay,
hopefully we can get that soon.
all right. All right, so where that sits right now, Matt, is your request has been heard and Bill has submitted it.
And Matt, let me see if I can get you, just tell me what you need for the computer file, the shape file, or whatever. Send me the,
Yeah, I'll email you.
yeah, the convention you want, and I'll see if I can get it out of the GIS system.
Okay.
All right. So then when do you, now you have us here, well, mine says week 6, but I guess it would be week 7 coming out. This
Yes,
first
we're-
project meeting is today, right? And
Yeah.
so you're thinking 2 weeks from today?
2 weeks from today, and I know that you just went through the process of figuring out the best day of the week. It turns out that 2 Thursdays from this week, I'm not available on the 17th. So I would have to do a different day that week. But we could plan to meet the week of the 14th if there's another day other than Thursday, Friday that works for you.
Okay.
The 15th?
How does the
15th
15th
would work for me.
work for folks?
I can
That's
zoom.
the
I'll
Tuesday.
zoom in. I could zoom in. I'll be away, but I can zoom.
And that doesn't conflict with planning, so.
I'm fine.
That's the 15th?
So for that week, it would be Tuesday, the 15th?
A public hearing that day.
Public hearing?
You don't want it on that night,
Okay,
because that's, would be unfortunate that somebody that wants to partake in the library thing is at the muck
Conflicted.
hearing.
It's a conflict, too.
Muck.
Mattakese.
Matakees.
all right.
What about Monday that week?
Monday, the 14th.
Bastille Day?
Bastille Day.
Monday the 14th, I'm actually down on the Cape that day. We're working in Katuitt, so that is easier for me because I'm going to be there anyway.
Okay.
That works for everybody.
I may not be there. Mondays are my one day off, and I have to come in from Sandwich, so
Okay.
yes, and I don't.
2 days
can't-
after the Ren Fair.
Yeah, and we have a program, once again, 91 programs in 5 weeks, so I have a program every other day of the week, so it's kind of impossible for me to get more time off.
But Joe could come. I mean, like,
Joe
you
could do
two
that
could
one.
swap.
All right, so let's see if we can,
He works late on Mondays.
Well, he'll have
this is
to
our,
change his
this
schedule.
meeting here.
Go down the block.
Yeah. Okay, so yeah, I just want to make sure we have a purpose. So our purpose for the 14th would be to get updates from you from the site analysis and any survey information that's going. That would be the main content of that meeting?
Yeah, I think at that point we would have probably developed a graphic program that goes along with. So we have a building program that's a written narrative, and we have a summary spreadsheet. What we typically do as a start for our work is we translate that into what we call a graphic program, where the spaces are drawn to the actual size that they are relative to the other spaces. When you Yeah, it's kind of like the building blocks. You know, you have a bigger building block for the meeting room and smaller building blocks for staff offices, and those are all on a page, and we can kind of see relative sizes of things, and then we start to group those based on kind of desired adjacencies, or you know, these are all adult spaces, these are all children's spaces, et cetera. So that's kind of the first step for us in terms of understanding in a visual way the library building program, and then starting to translate that visual representation of the program into diagrams that are kind of plan focused. You know, we start to arrange those pieces on paper so that different things are next to other things, and they start to take on a kind of spatial quality. So I think by the 14th, we would start to have the kind of beginnings of those diagrams.
Okay, so that sounds like progress that we can get caught up with.
6 o'clock, Judy, on Monday, the 14th?
6 o'clock, Monday, the 14th. Okay? All right.
At the library?
No.
No,
Good
not at the
question.
library.
We can't do it at the library, and because we're open late that night, so library staff also.
So we have to get a
could give
room for the,
feedback
we have to
that
get a
day.
room for the 14th.
Yeah, is Capital underway by then?
No.
You're not, so we could have room A on?
Yeah, Monday, Capitol starts on August 28th.
So this is room A?
So sounds like room A would be
Okay.
available.
I can Zoom.
Okay. Then,
And sorry, can you tell me where that is? I'm not familiar with that.
that's the
location.
main floor of Town Hall toward the back.
Okay, great.
We can check, too. I don't know if we have a program that night. You can check?
Yeah, I have it on my phone.
Kids.
Yes, there's 2 programs that night.
Okay. So, sorry.
Yes.
No room at the inn.
No, okay. All right, so then the next interval I'm seeing is another 2-week interval, which would take us into the week of the 28th.
The 31st.
Yeah, unfortunately, again, that is a Thursday that doesn't work for me. I'm sorry. Generally, Thursdays are not problematic. Just the first 2 out of the gates that we're looking at. seem
Well,
to be.
I guess the other thing is, would there be, are there deliverables then? I mean, what progress will have been made
There will be
between those?
deliverables whenever we schedule a meeting. We are gonna
Yes.
start work, and we're gonna continue working, and each meeting is a kind of snapshot of where we are at that moment. So whether the meeting is on Monday or it's on Thursday is just the difference of a few days of work product, right? But there will be things to talk about and discuss. At that point, I would think we'll be kind of solidly into kind of building planning diagrams, that you're starting to evaluate, and, single-story building versus a 2-story building. And, what's the size of that look like on the site, and where's parking going to be, and where's building entry? It's going to be the kind of the rough draft sort of where this project is heading.
Okay, and then, excuse me, I'm going to interrupt you, because then the sequence is that the community forum is kind of on the heels of that meeting. So is that the right sequence to have,
Right.
to be talking about
Is there enough
one
meat to have a
story,
public
second
meeting?
story, or should,
Better not be 2 stories. Will it be enough to have a public forum? I think there'd be enough. There'd be drawings and site survey and,
wait a minute, Susan, so before this meeting or after the 14th?
no, I think we should have another meeting. He can't do the 28th, but what about, what's a week after the 28th? Is that 4th, is that like August 6th or
No, he
something?
can't do the Thursday, which
Do
is
the
the
Thursday
31st.
that week.
I thought it was Thursday, the 31st. He can't do that.
Right.
All right, a week
I
from
can't do
then-
the 31st, right?
Okay.
Can you do the 28th?
I can do the 28th, yes.
Because Capitol still won't be in that room until
Right.
August.
So that's exactly 2 weeks after the 14th. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
All righty. So then we're saying that second meeting will be 7/28, 6 o'clock in room A. And I think another topic then is going to be how we will be organizing the community forum. What of this information that you're bringing to us or have brought to us by that point would be available, and how we'll present it. Will it be a PowerPoint? However we're going to do that, so that we're clear on what shape that will take.
Yeah, that would be one of the topics.
Okay. All right.
Excuse me, Judy?
Yes.
Did you say that you were planning on a meeting for the 28th of
Yes.
July?
Yes.
28th, 6 o'clock, room A?
Room A.
Room A?
Yeah.
Because this room is used that evening by the Old Kings Highway.
Yeah,
Okay.
That's fine.
So that you're
Yeah.
Thank you.
We need more meeting rooms.
There's potential in a new library. Okay.
Great.
So far, everyone's been accommodated, so
So-
we're doing
At
good.
that same meeting, are we gonna schedule the community forum right after that meeting then? Is that our plan? So should we do that now, or should we wait till that?
No, let's do
We
it.
should plan that now?
Yes.
It doesn't give you a lot of time to publicize
I
it.
was gonna say,
The sooner the better we can
I'm
announce.
saying we should plan it now so we can publicize.
Yes.
but the
Sorry.
the July newsletter has already gone out, so I think just to get the most, I don't know if we can wait till the first week of August, but that way it could go in the upcoming newsletter.
We do weekly blasts. We can put it in the blast.
Yeah, so if we had it the first week of August, then that's going to meet the deadline for the newsletter for August, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. All right, so the first.
August
Yes,
7th?
John?
Matt, would you have the survey done by the week of the 28th, or is, another question is, by the time of the community meeting, would the survey be done, or are you still working off of base mapping?
I won't know until I hear back from our civil engineer and their survey team in terms of, when they're able to fit it into their schedule. They haven't started it yet, so, and we are not officially under contract yet with the town. So, that said, they can get it into their schedule, but I don't know, to answer your question, I don't know where they will be by the 28th with the survey. I mean, I'm hopeful that we'll be pretty far along by then. But again, it's not critical to us in terms of our planning efforts at this stage. I mean, it's a generally flat site. I think if we have some basic site information that we were just talking about with Bill, I think that's enough to get us started and kind of get us through this first month or month and a half of work. The more detailed survey is really going to come into play more as we get into more specific conversations with our civil engineer about, stormwater management and, what available utilities, although we've already gotten some basic information about utilities. So it's not critical that we have it by that first community forum, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
And then a follow-up,
Yep.
because we talked so much about slosh. Where's slosh,
Yeah.
right, how, can we determine slosh without that survey and be able to talk to people about that without actually knowing specifics? Because.
Bill, you can probably answer that better than I can. I mean, in terms of defining where the limit of the slosh zone is, I don't know what information you have available to you, but I think we can, if we know generally where those zones are, we'll be able to determine the extent to which the library is in those zones or not. I suspect, based on my recollection of the maps that identified those areas, that there's a very good possibility that a part of this building will be in a slosh zone for a Category 4 hurricane. But I think that's an overlay that we can add to whatever existing information Bill is going to request from the people in town.
Well, we were working with, we had maps of these things.
In your environmental assessment that you did for each of the sites, all that information is there. Right, Bill?
Yeah, the map, though, is a model. It's not a map.
Exactly, it's a prediction. It's not fact.
When you do a GIS model, you tell the mapping construct to color in between these topographic points.
Right.
And that's what it does. So what you normally do is you get an engineer to determine what certification or insurance you would need to proceed and how much the building has to be elevated, if at all. Because FEMA flood zone elevation is required in certain zones. I've never heard of a slosh zone elevation unless it's in the green or the yellow, so.
Okay, so Matt, do you have those then? You must have access to at least that.
We don't, well, I don't believe we have access to that information yet.
Well, that's easy. Oh. Okay, so let's get that to you.
What, the slosh zone? There's no slosh zone map.
No, but it's information. I understand.
They already
the
have,
model.
it's already
Oh.
online, and it's already on the NOAA website, so there's
Okay.
nothing at a scale that's going to pinpoint the corner of the building and the corner of the slosh zone.
Sure. All right.
So it's online.
Well, yeah, with the model is online, but it's not a map, so. But it's information.
I mean, and also in terms
I'm
of-
sure there's a civil engineer that will tell us that what is the relationship between the slosh zone and building on the Cape. Somebody must have done this before.
Right. Susan?
No, I was just going to say, the sentiment seemed to be, it was like, so what? Virtually every place on the Cape is in a slosh zone. And if we don't have a Category 4 hurricane, that's number one. Number two, the entire site's not in the slosh zone, so they could pick part of the site that's not in the slosh zone.
Yeah.
So, but it does have implications further on in terms of insurance and possible mitigation. But I don't think it's a deal breaker.
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
It's good to anticipate those questions, though.
Yeah, but I-
One question I have about the site is, given the fact that it's been identified as a potential site for a new town common, has there been a group tasked with looking at what that might look like? In other words, has anything been done to date that says the town common should be this big and it should go here on this property? And is there anything that we need to react to, or is the library project happening first, such that the library will then influence where the town common is planned?
Well, we just happen to have our select board member who's very,
For the record,
in
Mark
this.
Forrest on the Select Board. I'm also the author of the article creating the funding to study and develop a plan for the Yarmouth Common. There's been a fair amount of work on it, so we have not yet set up an advisory committee, but the Select Board obviously accepted the recommendation that the efforts of this library project should be done in collaboration with those working on the Commons. The first order of business related to the Commons is essentially the legal work that Bill had just referenced earlier. What we want to do is make sure that on the common site, and these grounds include obviously the library property considerations, we want to make sure that we've identified all the encumbrances, all of the potential restrictions. This is public property, so there may very well be Article 97 considerations. So we need to work with our legal team to make sure that we fully understand what the encumbrances are, what the requirements are, what the conditions are. There's also been a lot of speculation about portions of the area being designated as a memorial site for the Sears family, or and we need to make sure that we're clear on exactly what those areas are. So we've got to do research because, for example, we would not want to see any kind of development take place on an area where there's an encumbrance. This was an issue that we had to wrestle with the drive-in site. As I'm sure you might be aware, the town was allowing uses of the drive-in site that were inconsistent with some of the encumbrances that were on the property related to the state. And so we had to scale back and make sure that the overall plan was consistent with those encumbrances. So I believe it's important to identify these issues up front, and that's part of the legal work that's ongoing. So to some degree, you could say that we're already beginning to collaborate and work together on that. So, but the select board, we had talked about appointing a committee, and that's something that should be done. The good thing is that it's my understanding, and maybe our consultant can speak to this, but it's my understanding that, assuming that the pieces fit, some of the costs with the project that relate to common features or landscaping in and around the site may very well be eligible. So it's important not only to collaborate, but there may very well be synergies and opportunities to cost share with other programs and other resources. So I think collaboration is clearly necessary, and we just need to keep in touch. But in the meantime, I plan to stay very close to this project and be able to address those issues as they come up. So thank you.
Before you leave, Mark, this question had come up this topic had come up a number of times with the public too. Just what would the interaction be? And so when I'm hearing you tonight, are some of these encumbrances going to affect the library project?
That's why we have to, it depends on ultimately where it is. This is why it's incredibly important to do that. I'm a big believer, having been involved in a lot of projects myself, before you develop a site or think about developing a site, you want to know what your encumbrances are on the use of the site. So what restrictions are there that you inherit? You don't want to find those out after you've built the project or developed the project or laid out the program, which is kind of where we were going for a while on the drive-in site redevelopment. So we got those answers and we worked them out and incorporated them into the design of the project.
Judy, could I just make a comment?
Okay, Susan?
I just want to piggyback on a comment that Mark made about collaboration. The other group, I think it would at least be interesting to talk to is the Water Resources Committee, and what, if anything, the sewer project in terms of shared costs. There may be an opportunity there if they're going to be developing something along 28 that would help with the civil engineer and the costing of the library. But it'd be interesting to talk to them just to get an idea of their schedule, how it might impact the construction of the library, where the library might be on the site, because that's a huge project, and that's going to affect everything along 28, of which this site is a huge piece on 28. So I think that's certainly...
I think having, if I can just interject, having a sewer line on Route 28 is an asset.
Right.
And even though it didn't factor in on your criteria when evaluating the sites, from my point of view, it was a significant factor, speaking to the wisdom of this particular site.
Okay. Does anyone else have any questions for Mark while we have?
I've got a
Okay.
question. Mark, you raise a great point that understanding the encumbrances and restrictions on a site before you start planning is an important first step. I think that's certainly true for the town common, but it sounds like it's also true for the library. And do you have a sense of when your legal team will have more information about those restrictions for the site? I worry a little bit about us starting to make assumptions about where this library might go on the site without some of that information. I don't want to end up, to your point, on having to undo work that we've done.
This is a question that I brought up. Bill and I have talked about this quite a bit, so he's already had discussions with council. What their time frame is, I don't know, but I know Bill's working on it to get it done. We know there's a sense of urgency that we have to this. And quite frankly, in developing the plan for the common, which encompasses this site, we've pulled together a fair amount of information already. So it's not like we're starting from zero. Okay. I mean, we've done some work on it. But I think there's some areas of the site that we really want to clarify. I'm particularly concerned about the area that's been designated so-called as the Memorial Playground. I've seen others characterize it as a very vast area, and I've seen others indicate that it's a very small area. I think the idea of a playground in the vicinity or next to a library is a great idea, but we need to be clear on exactly what that area is. So that's something that, like I said, I've mentioned this before numerous times here in the administrator's office, and Bill assured me tonight that we're working on it, and it's well underway.
Yeah, we made a communication, but given your concern, Matt, I will call them tomorrow.
Thank you.
Okay, great.
Okay. All right, so back to our calendars, folks. So we were talking about having a community forum the first week of August. One of the issues that's been floated here has been the time of day and who's available at certain times of day and interfering with dinner hours and bedtimes and who we want to get to come to these meetings and how to reach a broader audience. So what kind of shape might this community forum be? I think it needs to include a presentation so that folks can respond to that, right? But beyond that, I'm not sure how to, and how broad a net we want to cast.
We want to cast as wide a net as possible, I think, in the first go-around to capture as much as we possibly can. Because to Matt's point, we don't want to get to the second one and come up with a gotcha, you know, and so the wider net we cast now, the better off we're going to be. As to time of day, you know, people work,
Right.
and then you've got kids and dinner. So how to balance that? I think
Summer
it's-
visitors and then kids on vacation. I mean, summer itself is
it's
unique.
tough, but I think it's better to capture the adult side first, I think, and those people that work, capture them in an early evening hour.
Thoughts? Susan?
Has anyone had an experience with the Saturday community? Is that
Thought about it, and
feasible?
haven't done that.
Is that in the summer, like a Saturday morning?
We're open 6
early?
days a week.
Well, Saturday mornings, I do have the Family Fun Days over at West Yarmouth. So that would give the parents an opportunity to attend while the children were engaged, and open that door up. I don't think we're going to get many teens during the summer at all, just because of with their work schedule. But I think we can outreach to the school eventually for that. But I think a Saturday has been expressed as a good day. I wouldn't necessarily do first thing in the morning because I believe soccer is going on till about noon on those days, if not later. So I would do it in the afternoon if we did a Saturday.
Even in August they're playing?
Yeah, in summer?
In summer? That's mostly
Okay,
the
is it
fall.
over there then?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's a fall, spring thing.
Yes.
They're not doing, unless it's a camp, but
Right.
they wouldn't be playing on a Saturday. At a camp.
I have to say, my personal vote would not be for a Saturday in the summer.
In the summer on the Cape.
Just throwing it out there.
Just beautiful
you know,
beach day.
One thing that we have discussed in the past with other towns is picking a day for a community forum, but having 2 meetings. You're never going to have the perfect time slot that captures the full audience. So I would suggest, number one, that it be a hybrid meeting so that the parents that can't get a babysitter can still join. Maybe it's after dinner and it's after, kids' bedtime. So what we have suggested in the past is a daytime and an evening meeting on the same day.
Oh, good. I was
And
going to
try
say
to
that.
kind of capture 2 different buckets of people in those 2 meetings. And, and as a hybrid meeting, the people that can't make it there in person are still able to attend. It's recorded presumably, so people that couldn't make either of those times can catch up and watch the meeting. That might be your best bet.
So would you think early afternoon and then early evening, say, 7 is not quite early evening, but something along that line, like 1 and 7, or?
Yeah, I mean, that would work. I'm trying to think. We did these in Orleans last year, and I want to say the community meetings were in the kind of 7:30 to 8 time frame.
Yeah.
To try to push it late enough that you were getting people kind of after dinner and early kid bedtime. But I mean, I think this is where we would sort of rely on you to tell us what works best for your community.
Okay, so could we look at Thursday, August 7th? And then, Jen, is somebody?
What did she say?
I don't know.
Was somebody
I
trying to
guess it
talk
was
to
some,
her?
I guess it was
Some background noise.
All right, there's a lot going on here where I am. I'm in onset right now, and it's like absolute chaos. Are you asking me about a date? One thing I was going to say is I completely love the idea of 2 different meetings because we did that for the Canton Pool project. It's literally for the reasons laid out is that you've got everybody that's got kids, and believe me, like, I totally get it because I was that parent that was running all over the place at night and trying to deal with everything. So sometimes if you can do it in the day, but then, you have both, can't do it in the day, can't do it at night, so you try to hit everybody. And then the hybrid thing, I think, will be important, and unless Unless there are specific meetings that you need us at in person, it's very likely that Tim or I will be checking in virtually just because these are evening meetings. And somewhat trying to save the billing and the invoicing for you guys. Certainly, if we can be there in person, we will. We just want to be conscientious of budget. And weekend meetings would be very difficult, but you know, if we have to accommodate, we certainly will. So to the dates, I plopped the 14th and the 28th in the calendar, and are you asking, now you're asking about August 7th? Is that?
Actually, now, yeah, now I'm asking the general group.
We have, I will just say, August 7th, we have our office outing that evening, just FYI.
Bring them all.
So, folks,
To Yarmouth, that's what we'll do.
we're talking 2 meetings, like 1 o'clock in the afternoon and then a 7:30.
Yeah.
So we're pushing that a little later. All right. So now let's get to a day. I was under the impression that we wanted to get this done. So that's why I was thinking the first week of August, which would be the 7th.
Gotta do it sooner than later.
It'll be a
Any
Thursday?
other conversation
Thursday?
on that?
August
Thursday,
7th?
the 7th. And Jen's saying that they're having their outing, but we will be recorded, so,
That's a Thursday, right, Judy?
yes. Does that work for folks?
Yeah.
Okay.
Matt, is that good for you, the 7th?
That works for me.
Oh.
Okay. We just need a room, Judy.
Yeah, we do need a location. Now, but,
Be here.
Hold on, let me get that on my calendar. I can go back to
okay,
it.
About the senior center ballroom, it's big.
it is big.
Yeah.
You can do lots of visuals there.
Cable is difficult.
Yeah. South Yarmouth is available for both those times on that day.
Are you talking about a forum, community forum?
Yeah.
Community forum
Yeah, you need
Need
this
space.
or the senior center.
for the senior
Yeah,
center.
for size.
Or the community room at the PD.
So, excuse me, August 7th, so let me talk to the cable people, see if they can set it up there, but I had a meeting there, it was difficult to set up cable.
Senior center or PD?
Senior center,
Hearing room?
I think it's preferred.
the larger room at the senior center.
Yeah.
Yep.
I was talking to Susan, sorry.
Is August 7th, what day is that?
Thursday.
Thursday.
Well, let's see if we can have it here, if you want to.
Be better.
All right.
Get it.
All right, thank you, Bill. For both, yeah.
If we can get all the dates, then they just go to the Mary Alice, and then she plugs them in, or it tells us there's a conflict.
So on August 7th, already scheduled at 5 PM, is the Conservation Commission meeting.
Here.
in this-
This would be 7:30 though, correct?
Yes.
Do they usually go
Do they
2
go
hours?
2.5 hours?
I don't want to comment.
They could. They could go 2
Usually they're at
hours.
the beginning of their meetings, not usually till the end. I don't know if they go to 7 or 7:30. But it may very well be that you can work something out with them, all right? Or ask them to, wrap up in time so that you can begin
Right.
what you're doing at 7 PM.
All right, so I will get all of this to Mary Alice, and then she can,
Yeah, and then it'll be the scavenger hunt for your venue. So from there.
okay. All right, so then we're going to be needing another meeting of this group to review that. Do we just want to stick with our Thursday and go to the 14th?
I'll have to Zoom.
Does that work for folks? At 6
Yeah.
o'clock, back to 6 o'clock, though.
Now, you should just be aware that on August 14th at 6 PM, the zoning board usually holds their hearings.
Okay, and I think we would be then going back to the library, right, for our Thursday at the library?
Thursday meetings in the library.
Yeah.
I'm absolutely not available that day.
Oh, dear. we go a different day during the week?
No, I'll be gone all week, but, I mean, I could Zoom the rest of the week, but that night is my son's birthday plus something else, so can't do it.
You need to enjoy your family.
Yeah, otherwise I'll be sleeping outside.
Okay, so Mindy, we could be at South Yarmouth Library on the 14th
Yes.
at 6 PM.
Yes.
Okay. I do want to get us through August for sure, folks, and maybe one into September.
28th?
Yeah, so the 28th, can we just plug that one right in?
6 PM, library.
That's in, is that the one that's in September?
That's 28th of August.
28th?
It's a Thursday. That's just before,
Oh, the
that's
dot's
just
in
before Labor Day weekend.
Oh, that's good, though, right? Get it out of the way.
Get it out of the way.
Okay, so,
Then the following week is Labor Day weekend. No, we'd be past Labor Day weekend.
So we're doing the 28th?
yeah, let's do the 28th.
September?
Yeah.
And then one in September.
And then one in September, yeah, I think that would be prudent.
The end of September.
So 2 weeks after that is what?
The
Yeah,
11th.
so the 11th,
September 11th?
I'll Zoom.
back then.
So that would be 6. That's a tricky one for me. We've got a building opening on the North Shore that day
On the 11th,
on the 11th.
okay.
Is there a different day that week that we could do?
How about Tuesday, the 9th?
It's fine. It's good.
Is that, are your meetings scheduled out that far? You scheduled out?
9th of September.
9th of September?
September 9th.
We can go to the oh, we can't go to the
I won't be
library.
available that day, but
I'm
the
not
library
available
was.
that week.
Library's available.
Don't worry about me.
Oh, you're not available that week?
I'm out of the country the first
Yeah,
2 weeks.
Country. How dare you?
Man.
A life.
As long as someone else doesn't, that's fine.
All right, well, that's 1, 2. Yeah, I kind of think we need to hit that week.
Library's open, but yeah.
I kind of think we need to hit that week, that if we go another week. it's-
I know.
The 9th is fine. I mean, we do it in the library.
Can do it in the library on
Yeah,
Tuesday
according
the
to
9th?
me.
Yeah, I just won't be there.
September 9th, Tuesday, the 9th at 6 o'clock?
All right, does that work for you, Matt?
Okay.
We're talking about
Sorry,
Tuesday?
Tuesday
you
the
said
9th?
Tuesday the 9th at 6?
Yes.
Yes, I can do that.
Judy, were you looking for a date when the select board meets?
Yes, but we're going to be in the library anyway, so, but I was. Are they meeting on September 9th?
Yes,
Okay,
just FYI, but we, as you know, we meet here.
right,
Yeah, we'll be at the library.
okay, so,
And you would meet again on the 23rd?
So in September, we meet on the 9th, and then we meet on the 23rd.
okay,
And in October, just make a note of this, we'll meet on the 7th, and then we'll meet again on the 21st,
thank you.
all right?
Yeah, that's great,
Keep that in mind for planning.
Do we want to
that's great.
give us the select board an update at one of those meetings there at the end of September?
I'm sorry, are the September meetings Tuesdays?
Yes.
The 9th and the
one.
23rd?
Just this one,
Just that one, September 9th.
September 9th.
Oh, okay, and then so is there another one in September or just the one?
Not yet.
Not yet.
We were talking about
Okay.
select
Okay.
So far.
No,
digress.
the reason I ask, I have my Weymouth Historical Commission meetings on Tuesday evenings. Usually it's the third or fourth Tuesday of the month, so I just was not sure about my schedule with that, but carry on.
Okay,
This is the second Tuesday, so you're safe.
okay, so, although I did say one into September, why don't we do another one in September and then see what we can do about matching to the BOS? So,
So we go back to Thursday,
so go back to Thursday, the 25th,
25th.
September, Thursday,
But that's where the community forum is on that.
Yeah, but that's going to get pushed out a week.
We're gonna put
probably,
that
because we're
into-
already-
yeah, we're going to have to start planning that, too. That'll be on one of our other agendas, to start planning that.
So why don't we go 25th?
6 o'clock.
It would have to be room A. This room has got zoning board.
Or library.
Or library.
A library,
Let's stick with
okay,
the library.
great.
I think,
Yes.
Library,
yeah.
Good.
9:25?
9:25 at 6 o'clock
9:25,
at the
6
library.
o'clock at the library. All right, so then, will we be ready to talk to the select board? When will we be ready?
October.
Because, let's see, this is looking at,
October 7th.
Before the community forum,
yeah, maybe before the second community forum.
So that would be. Oh, that would before or after?
Well, I would think before, because then if they had any feedback for us to pursue certain ideas or questions, we can make a point of including that into our second community forum.
Okay. Mark, what's your schedule in August? What's the select board?
October.
I'm sorry.
October was the 7th and 21.
Yeah.
I thought we were going to meet them before the first community outreach or after
Yeah,
the second
so
one?
September, they're meeting the 23rd and the 9th. So we could,
Okay.
we could see them on the 23rd maybe. So how do we request that? Through Dorcas?
21st?
Tracy's the chair, and I would send an email to Tracy with CC on to Bob, asking him to get on the agenda.
23rd.
Whatever night.
23rd of September.
Yeah.
September or October?
October.
Oh, wait, I thought we were talking
We
September.
were looking at September.
We just did the 20.
We did 9/9 and 9/25.
We just did the 25th of September for.
That's for our regular meeting.
For our regular meeting, but we're talking about updating select board at this point.
So we're in.
Because by then, we will have had the community forum at the beginning of
one,
August. We'll have
right.
time to digest that a little
Right.
and,
Promote the
Or
second
following
community forum.
excuse me?
We can promote the second one
Yeah, exactly.
while we're presenting to
Yeah.
the select board.
All right, so
Good idea.
I will send a request to Tracy to be on the agenda for September 23rd.
Cool.
Okay. Okay. Matt, is there anything you think we've missed?
No, I think this is a great start. I've got these dates in my calendar. Let me know about the 23rd, but pencil that in.
Okay.
No, I think we're in good shape.
Okay. Jen, do you have anything you want to add in here?
Jane? Oh, Jen.
No, we'll just get, if we're gonna, if somebody can just recap all the dates. I was furiously trying to put dates and times and everything in. I totally missed all the locations, but I'm sure they'll all be, online too. So, like I said, that's, unless you need us there in person, we'll probably chime in online, but, yeah, just send me all the dates and we'll make sure that they're in our calendar.
Okay, so our next item here is delegation, but I do want to just review, make sure everyone has these same dates, all right? So we have July 14th, 6 o'clock, room A. July 28th, 6 o'clock, room A. August 7, the community forum sessions, 1 o'clock and 7:30, and that's location TBD.
What time is that?
1 and
1
7.
o'clock and
1 and
7:30.
7:30.
Two of them on the same day?
Yeah.
Okay.
Half hours can confuse people.
Okay, we like
But
7.
I've heard, I mean, experientially.
So it's 7.
Like 7?
1 and 7?
I was trying to give them a little wiggle room there. Okay. The 14th.
Trickle in.
6 o'clock,
Yep.
South Yarmouth Library. August 28th, 6 o'clock,
Right.
South Yarmouth Library. And then into September,
9th.
the 9th, 6 o'clock. And our location for that,
Library.
The library.
And request for the 23rd for the Select Board. And September 25, 6 o'clock at the library. Wow, great job, folks.
So the only two you have in room A are the 14th and the 28th?
That's all I've
July.
noted, yes.
So I'll just email Mary Alice right now.
Because the 7th, was there a conflict on the 7th of August with us using?
Matt can't go.
Matt
Matt
can't
couldn't go.
Location, I meant, because you wanted a big enough place and we
Oh,
were,
we
that's
need
the,
a-
when we were.
August 7th.
Yes, August 7th, so we were talking
The request was
about,
going to win for the hearing room, for this
Hearing
room.
room here.
that's what I was just wondering. Okay, I'll ask Mary Alice.
Send that to Mary Alice, yeah.
Yeah.
What do you need from her?
August 7th, the community forum.
1 o'clock and 7 o'clock.
Oh, yeah, all right.
Where?
Here.
Here. If we can get the room.
I thought you said this, on the 7 o'clock, the room is already booked.
Yeah, that's what
No,
I thought.
5,
5 for the Conservation Commission.
conservation.
Yeah, I think we're looking for another location that day, either the senior center or the PD community room.
Conservation meets at 5 o'clock, so I think the suggestion was maybe Judy talk to the chair and see if they
Yes.
can.
But that was when we were going for 7:30
Yeah.
instead of 7.
Oh,
They can wrap up at 6:45 that night.
Okay, Matt?
Sorry, not to throw a wrench into this, but I'm realizing that the 23rd I am not available.
23rd of.
That's the select board date,
Yeah.
oh dear.
The what date? Wait a minute.
Select
Select board.
the 23rd.
Okay.
What were the other dates that they
Then we would
had
move
scheduled?
to October 7 is the next scheduled.
Okay. Which would still put it before the second community forum.
Okay.
October 7th.
All right, well, I will
Okay.
adjust that request. All righty. And other delegation that came out of tonight, I will have a lot of communication with Mary Alice about dates and building agendas. And Bill was going to follow up with town council about the timeline they have for determining what restrictions are on that property. And
I think the one thing when the committee outreach strategies, I'm not quite sure if we want to talk about that tonight or you want to bring it up at your next meeting. You really need to, I've learned between 3 different projects, there are multiple groups of emails that people use. I think we need to get them in so that, there's emails available to the library, there's emails available to the school, there's emails that planning uses. So I think we need to get all of them in one place and use the same sort of outreach strategy for each, because we use the Code Red. I'm not quite sure if that's the best methodology, given what its purpose is, but, is it Facebook? Is it the website? Just get a list of them and then know that each of these forums, we're notifying people how far in advance and with what type of material. We have the webpage, which we'll post things, but I think it's important not to sort of do that just before the meeting. So by your next meeting, you should really think about collecting all those into one package and then, push the button and send out the flyer or whatever it is. Typically, we use a flyer with a website and invite information on it. So I'm not quite sure how much the architect would be involved in that, probably to help with the flyer or whatever, but not the outreach, actual what venues are going to go to.
Well, we may have to have a subcommittee to work on some of
Right.
these tasks, too. When we did DPW, that was very effective to have subcommittees doing brochures, and subcommittee did something else. Because then you have a couple of people focused, task-oriented, and the job gets done. So I see that as a topic for our next meeting to kind of get that under control, divvy up those responsibilities and see where that's going. Okay. All right, I guess I'm okay. Closing thoughts from anyone? Jane?
Good.
Okay.
It was a quick summer.
Yeah, Susan?
We're in October already.
Okay, John?
I'm good.
Thank you. Sandy?
I'm just curious on what next steps delegation was.
Well, that was.
That's what Judy was just talking
just
about.
that. So that I'm doing the meetings and locations work with Mary Alice, and Bill's going to do the legal stuff.
Legal background work.
So we don't have another meeting until the 14th,
And
okay.
then think about the most wonderful outreach that you have received and how we can use that to our advantage here. Closing thoughts, Mindy?
I'm good, thank you.
Okay, and Tom?
Yeah, I have just one quick closing thought. I really want to recognize two people who are deserting us in times of need.
Such a choice of words.
I want to thank them. I really do sincerely believe that, you know, they've both been driving forces on getting us through this process, and I appreciate both of you and your how you've dealt with me, because I'm such a fool that you've gotten me through this process. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes, well, thank you both. Bill, you can zoom in. We'll welcome you.
Oh, okay. I think our goal, Jane and I both talked about it, was to get the site done, get you an architect, get an OPM, and so you're in a position where you have all the resources you need and the decision is made. And fortunately, we got there, you know, within that time frame.
Well, I will miss you on the other end of my email.
Oh, okay.
Thank you very much
Thank
for
you.
all of your work. And Jane, we want to continue to tap into your brain, so.
Not far away.
Okay.
Maybe in the Jane Kane wing.
Yeah,
Oh.
right.
Could be sailboats and.
But thank you very much, because there's a ton of work that we have access to, and information and all kinds of things that you have shepherded to this point. So, with great appreciation, thank you.
Been fun. I have one more meeting here.
Yeah, well,
I'm not going to be around.
that's okay. All right,
Motion to adjourn?
second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. Thank you, everyone.
Night, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
Have a good night.
Happy 4th.
Yep. Bye-bye.